Hamas only represents itself with its mere political interpretation of Islam, which is far from the teachings of Islam and the wisdom of Islam, and from Islam's call for dialogue for the sake of peace in our world. What Hamas is doing can never create peace, nor can the reaction with the destructive war in Gaza.
I was so fascinated by your comments last night. You and I have been friends now for about 6 years, having first met in Riyadh as you were sitting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and we brought the first evangelical delegation to meet with him. And I want to start with October 7th, because you made some very strong statements last night at dinner. How do you, as a Muslim and one of the most influential Muslim leaders in the world, how do you see what happened, the invasion of Israel by Hamas on October 7th? How do you see that?
Of course, we have repeatedly talked about October 7th. We have said that we condemn what happened on October 7th. We have stated that this does not represent the teachings of Islam or the wisdom of Islam. Also, we condemn the reaction to Gaza with the destructive war, which also targeted women and children. There is no doubt that October 7th and the Gaza war are completely unacceptable. We demand the release of prisoners and hostages from both sides, without conditions, those who have been unjustly captured and detained.
Hamas says they are true and devout Muslims, and they are waging jihad against Israel and the Jewish people. So you're arguably the most influential Muslim cleric on the planet, right? Running the Muslim World League, which is a huge Islamic organization, giving guidance to so many Muslim clerics and theologians and all, and to people. Why is Hamas wrong? Help us as Christians understand why Hamas is wrong in their interpretation of the Quran and the Hadith, and that you're teaching Muslims that this is wrong, because it's very important for us to understand that.
Of course, Hamas is classified as a terrorist organization. Hamas is a faction outside the Palestinian Authority. Hamas only represents itself with its mere political interpretation of Islam, which is far from the teachings of Islam and the wisdom of Islam, and from Islam's call for dialogue for the sake of peace in our world, and the harmony of its national societies at large, and the Palestinian-Israeli issue in particular, to achieve a just and comprehensive peace in the region. What Hamas is doing can never create peace, nor can the reaction with the destructive war in Gaza. Both cannot create peace in the region. We confirm that what is happening and what happened on October 7th represents Hamas alone, which is a faction that broke away from the Palestinian Authority. Hamas only represents itself and does not represent the Palestinian people. Additionally, what is happening in Gaza in terms of a devastating war represents the current Israeli government and does not represent the entire Jewish people.
I want to say thank you, first of all, shukran, because a Muslim cleric of your influence, of your stature, it's really important for my viewers, Christians all over America and around the world, to understand you're condemning Hamas as terrorists. You're condemning their invasion and slaughter of Israelis and Americans and others as horrible. You're condemning the taking of hostages. You do have criticism of the Israeli government of how they have conducted the war. We'll get to that in a moment, but this is not a small thing. Certainly statements have been made by various Arab leaders, but in my recollection over the past year or so, in English, or to an American audience, let's say, I can only think of the Bahraini crown prince as speaking so forcefully. Again, I'm not saying that the others haven't condemned October 7th. They have. But you're coming on a Christian television network and you're saying it so clearly. And I think that's very, very important. And I want to say thank you. But you do have serious criticisms of the Israeli government. Let me just make sure I understand, though, what you mean. from your conversation today and even more last night at dinner, you're certainly criticizing the number of civilians that have died, the level of destruction in Gaza, which has grieved all of us. It has, especially, I think, the Christian community, but many Israelis are very sickened, saddened by how destructive this war has been. But I want to make sure I understand, are you saying that the war, because Israelis see the war as a war of self-defense, and I think it legitimately is, do you see it as a war of self-defense that you wish had been managed differently, or are you saying, no, it was not a war of self-defense, Israel doesn't have that right to fight and try to destroy or at least neutralize Hamas?
Such an attack that took place on October 7th should be dealt with wisely, not recklessly. It should not be dealt with in a way that results in the killing of tens of thousands of women, children, and other innocent people. Killing tens of thousands of people only to search for specific people from Hamas in Gaza. Where is the logic in this action? Where are the religious values? Where are the human norms? What kind of international logic is this? There is no doubt that this is completely unacceptable. Matters should be dealt with wisely and not in this manner. I can say that most countries in the world, if not almost all countries in the world, have condemned this. Also, you as Christians talk about it. And many Jewish people were pained by what is happening. These matters should be dealt with wisely and not in this manner.
I hear you. I just want to make sure I'm clear, though. Do you see it as a legitimate war of self-defense that you wish had been managed better? Is that, or do you think it's illegitimate?
I believe that Israel or any other party must approach any situation with wisdom that promotes peace and dialogue, rather than in the manner currently unfolding, not in a way that complicates things, or in a way that escalates the conflict and increases the suffering.
But you're not answering my specific question, which is, isn't a war of self-defense a UN guaranteed right? And even though, I have differences with my own government, and certainly you do, but is it legitimate? In other words, if you're attacked, you have to fight back against what you described as a terrorist organization, right? Is that fair? Is that a correct view? I just want to make sure I understand you, and that our viewers do as well.
I said that Israel should act wisely. It should act in a way that promotes peace and does not escalate the suffering in the region. I condemned October 7th and announced this condemnation. I think my words are very clear.
Okay, well, we may disagree on that, but I appreciate your condemnation of Hamas and describing them as a terrorist organization and condemning October 7th. I think what I'd like to do now is shift to where do we go from here? And how can Muslims and Christians, as well as Jews, what can we do to rebuild Gaza, to de-radicalize Gaza? The mosques were teaching hatred and murder of Israeli Jews and Christians. You and the Saudi government and the Emiratis and Bahrainis have really worked hard at de-radicalizing mosques, schools, media. You have a lot of experience, and the Muslim World League has been a leader in that, something I've been fascinated with and very encouraged by. So what's your vision of Gaza 2.0, the future of Gaza, and how do we work together?
Of course, we always call for a discourse of reason, wisdom, and moderation. We do not call for a discourse of clash and conflict that does not create solutions or peace. We call on everyone to represent a moderate Islamic discourse. We also call on other religions, Christianity and Judaism, to present the same moderate discourse that represents the common religious values. Any discourse that would escalate conflict, strife, and hatred is not useful at all, even if some believe that they will achieve victory in this, or a confrontation that they believe is fair. they will ultimately be the losers and will not achieve any gains in this. Religious discourse is very important in contributing to enhancing the chances of peace in the region. It is also very important in enhancing the peace of our world in general and the harmony of its national societies. We can say through approximate statistics that 80% of our world on this planet are followers of faiths. They respect their faiths to varying degrees, and these people do listen to religious discourse, and it influences them. Therefore, we call on all religious leaders to present a religious discourse that will enhance peace and harmony among all, a discourse that will enhance friendship and cooperation among nations and peoples in the face of ideas of religious, ethnic, cultural, and even political conflict and strife. Of course, as you know, the region has religious aspects. The conflict in that region has religious roots, and these religious roots cause religious leaders to bear the responsibility to present a moderate discourse, a discourse that creates solutions or enhances existing solutions. There are some initiatives, especially the Arab Initiative, which is a just initiative that achieves a just and comprehensive peace. There is also an international call issued by the United Nations General Assembly and in accordance with international law. With the current administration, the White House is advocating for a two-state solution. We believe that there is no other option but the two-state solution and the recognition of a Palestinian state. Therefore, based on this right and based on international law, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia led an international coalition to implement the two-state solution.